Yes, thanks very much. And so, what was your first documentary theater work? Was it The Clean City or not?
No. We began, first of all, we both were assistant director by Rimini Protocol.
Oh, okay.
But that was many years ago. That was 2009,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken.
10.
Or 2010. When we did, we helped them to do here Prometheus in Athens, a performance with 100 citizens at that time.
Okay.
I don't know if you know this 100% model.
Yeah, that's.
That was.
They have, I think 3 years ago they have done it in Hong Kong.
Yes.
Not by my company, by another company.
Yes, and that was an adaptation of this model. And then we did our first piece. The next year, 2011, we did our first piece, and it was about the privatization of the railway, of the public railway. So we found some people who were working in the trains in many different positions. And after, of course, having done a lot of interviews, we developed our first documentary theater performance.
Okay. So you were acting as an assistant because you to Rimini Protocol, because you were doing theater here, or because you were in Germany? Because I know that you study in Germany. So what brought you to Rimini Protocol?
I had seen some performances by Rimini Protocol when I was studying there, and I was very impressed by this way to narrate stories and to speak about the world and to speak about society and to speak about the social and political problems through this genre and through the way to develop new text for theater.
So we were working on the piece as assistant directors and assistant dramaturgs in 2010, and until then I knew Anestis because we worked together, and he was staging classical text, new text, current modern text of Germany, European texts, Greek texts, and until then I was an actor. Then I moved to Athens, and I saw, but when I was in Berlin, I saw 100% Berlin, and I met Daniel Wetzel there, the one of the 3 Rimini Protocol members. And I told him, I'm moving to Athens, and the city is very ugly. And I need a reason to fall in love with the city. So please let me do 100% Athens. Okay. And he said, no, no, we have rights, we have copyrights. But if we ever do the show, we would like you to be our assistant. And then, because they can't do this show with one assistant, we were more assistant. This is how we worked together for the first time on this, from the same position in 2010. And we fell in love with this research, traveling in the city, meeting people you would never meet under different circumstances. And then we decided, and it was also an invitation from the Athens Epidaurus Festival to do a theater performance, documentary theater performance the next year. And it was called Journey by Train.
Okay. So before that 100% Athens, was there any documentary theater in Athens, or it was London before that?
No, this is a good question. Unfortunately, I don't know much, but traditionally, the way people work here was closer to verbatim.
Okay.
Like there is a documentary research and there is a text, but it's usually performed by professional actors.
Okay.
This was, I think, already familiar, like everywhere, also in Greece.
Like history.
Yeah. The big difference is when you work with people who are not, who are performing their own story, their personal stories.
Okay. So yes, I see. Because thanks for giving me the videos for me to see. And even today, I see that your way of doing is, you use real people yes, to do the performance. So, and so after all these years, after doing several works of history of documentary theater, so what are the biggest challenges to you to do this kind of theater, and what is the biggest joy for you to make you to keep on doing? So what is the challenge? What is the joy?
The research is the challenge and the joy, I think, because it is really, I mean, very, how can I describe this? It is much more interesting when you go and meet new people and speak with the people and do your own research and try to find out how can I combine now all these elements to make a new performance. This is always something that, I mean, we always choose topics that are very fascinating. For example, now for this play here with Roma people, everything began last year because the Greek police, a policeman killed one boy who had this Roma origin. Because this boy, he was very armed and he ran... Poor, yes, sorry, arm, I used the German word. He was very poor, and he left from a gas station without paying 20 euros for the fuel. And then the police chased him and shot him. And that was a shocking moment about, you know, for us, like what is going on, what is happening in this society. And then we said, okay, let's try to develop a piece about this subject of, I mean, this kind of institutional racism. And then we began interviewing people from very different, like people that backgrounds. Yeah, like people that we usually, if you work in the theater, in these institutions, you usually contact a very special group of people, educated, very, you know, middle class, white, and when we work on these topics, it is very interesting that we go in a research which allows to meet different aspects of the world.
Yes, it's also the reason why I love
Yeah,
documentary theater.
and also here, for example, in this performance, it is very, very challenging because we have two persons who cannot read, and it is very difficult to arrange the text and to have precision on the text. Maybe you want to say something more about that?
We had difficulties in the past with experts, with people who are a little bit older, they cannot remember the text, and then you try to help them out. We always found a way, and now we never had this. We were never confronted with a situation where an expert, a protagonist, cannot read and cannot remember easily their texts, and. We try to use to solve the problem in a creative way. We put it in the dramaturgy. So both of them, they say they can't read or they have the difficulty to read, and we stage the play or their scenes at least in a form of an interview, of an interrogation, of a casting, like you are doing now with us. So it's question after question. So I ask you something, you give me something back, and then I make another question, and the more we do it, the more natural it becomes. So it becomes more like of a conversation. But we wouldn't go in this direction if they wouldn't have this disability, let's say disability, or we wouldn't go in this direction if they didn't have this problem.
This difficulty.
This difficulty. And it's a creative way to solve it. Of course, it doesn't always happen the way you want it, and then you have to go back to square one, and then to remind again the text and to do this. If they miss a rehearsal or two, then you have to go back, and that's really challenging. That's why we try to find different ways to remind them of the text, calling them, do your text, read the text out in the car. We send them sound clips with the text so that they can remember. But the thing is that we cannot especially these people who come from who live under very precarious circumstances, and in a Roma neighborhood in Athens, we cannot have the same expectations as from any other protagonist or from actors and actresses. You can't. So you have to adapt, and the more you adapt, you have to find solutions. And that's one of the nice things as well. Anestis spoke before about the research. The research is the best part. I used to hate, we used to hate transcribing the texts afterwards. That was a nightmare. You took an interview like for an hour and then you were like, oh God, it's not good. I will not use it, but we have to transcribe it. Now you have these machines and you put the text and then you have it ready. So now we take as many interviews as we want. For sure, what is also very engaging in this prospect is that you change as a human being as well. Like you cannot leave this production or let this production end without not being a different person, and hopefully a better person. And that's not only for us who started from one point and ended in another. It's also for the rest of the team. It's also for the people who participate in the show, who feel more emancipated or feel more empowered. It will, and hopefully it will have the same result on the audience as well.
How, besides documentary theater, so you still do conventional drama, right?
He does.
Okay.
No, not really.
No, not
A
really.
little bit.
Okay.
Conventional drama. Okay, sorry. So he does not.
Okay. So, but how did you decide? What's the subject? For example, like this time, Roma people, there are different ways to approach this subject. You can write a drama by doing research, or you can do in a documentary theater way. So what?
In a verbatim way.
Yeah, or in a verbatim way to use to ask professional actors to do interviews and ask professional actors to speak out the lines. So, is it the subject that decide the form, or somehow the form decide the subject? So
Very
which way
good question.
go on?
I think it is, in this case, and also which is in the case of Clean City, where we have quite a similar concept, it is the subject that leads us to this form, because it is not only about telling stories about these people, it's about the idea is to develop a narration about our country from the perspective of people who rarely get the chance to speak out their opinion, who are not like they don't have they're not participating in the media. You don't listen to their option of the story. In the mainstream media, for example, you listen only to the official version of the police, of the state, of the justice. You rarely listen what is the other side of the story. And for that reason, it becomes the stage becomes an instrument, let's say, of or a space where we can listen to a different, also political opinion or approach. Or political is not the right word, but it is a political action. And therefore, it has to be done by people who consciously want to do it, and not by performers who go in a representation of something else, let's say.
And how did you decide?
I think so. I mean, that was the idea here.
Yeah. And it wouldn't work. Like if you would take the texts of Clean City and you give them to actors, it wouldn't work as a piece. You have to write them in a different way. You have to write them in a conventional drama style with the first act and the second act and the third act and so on. Documentary theater is more closer to a performance than a conventional drama. And also the texts here, it would be really strange to give these texts of Roma people to white local non-Roma people, let's say. It would be really strange. So it's also a different time of who is on stage, who is representing whom, who is allowed to speak about whom, and so on and so on. These are questions that we put also in the show.
Okay. So how did you decide on the cast? Because I think how do you select the people on the stage? For example, this time is 4 or 5 actors, but there are a lot of other Roma people you have talked to. For example, like in the Clean City, you select 5 cleaners, but I think you don't just talk to 5 cleaners only. So how did you decide?
We would be very lucky if we just talked to 5 and found these 5 women. Yeah.
So are there any principles behind your choice?
No, it's well, the principle is, first of all, yes, there are a lot of criteria that people need to have interesting stories, and also need to have the will and the necessity to share the stories. So because the text is developed in cooperation with the performers. It is not that we choose the text and you have to say it like that. Performer can say, no, I don't agree, maybe I told this in the first interview, but I wouldn't like to say it like that in the performance. So it's always a cooperation. So it needs to be some people who are reflected on the process of the theater. This is one thing. And the second is that it must have stage appearance, kind of a performativity talent. Let's say.
What I saw there today, there are 2 actors, and both of them are not professional actors.
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it seems that older man seems a bit more the energy seems like a professional actor more.
No, the one of them is studying as a director in the school of the National Theatre where we used to be professors.
Okay.
And this is where we know him from.
Oh, okay. So he does have some theatre
experience. He
experience.
does have some theatre experience.
So that gives me the
and the other, the younger boy, his stage experience is from hip hop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so that's why I sense there's a little bit difference between
Yes.
the stage presence. Yes. And so are there any principles on editing the text? Because again, you have talked to so many people and you have hours and hours of interviews. But it's always, in my case, it's always I love, as you say, I love talking to people, because sometimes when if you are not doing a documentary theater, you won't have the chance to talk to this kind of people. And so sometimes the talk for one person, you will talk for 2 hours, 3 hours, and I will talk to 20, 30 people. Then, well, it's a nightmare when you had to put together all these interviews into only 2 hours show. So what is your principles then behind editing all these materials? Yes.
It's what Anestis said. Like the casting, it depends a lot on the stories that people have, and we don't want them to be repetitive. That it's not the same stories on stage, and that when we are, at least in our last couple of works, we try to do a mosaic of stories, like gather as many different stories and point of views as possible. And what we encountered here in our research with the Roma people is that most of them they share their stories. Like all of them can tell stories about how they have been bullied by the police, let's say at least bullied by the police. All of them have stories about living under precarious circumstances. All of them have stories about themselves or somebody in their family not going to school. Like things which are normal for us, they are uniting them. It's the common ground for them. So we said, okay, we can't have 5 people talking about the same things, but if they speak, it's like they speak about their community. They're speaking about themselves, they're speaking about the people who are on stage as well, and at the end they're also speaking about each and every, most of the members, let's say, of their community. So this aspect is what we are trying to have in the show, that when it's finished, and we know that we cannot speak about everything. We are not sociologists and we are not anthropologists, and we would be crazy to say, okay, this is the truth about Roma people and the only truth. It's not, it can't be. But it's a glimpse on a world that has been shut away from the rest of society, that has been wronged by members of society, and now it has been given a chance to make just, to claim what they deserve.
Sometimes in Hong Kong, I would be challenged by people that, well, you are not the person themselves. Although, for example, like you use the real people on the stage, but it is you who decide what he's going to say. So this
hopefully.
Yeah. So this issue about what you are not them. So what is your right to speak for them? How will you answer this question?
It's a good question. I mean, there is also the question of necessity. Like if what we could do is say, well, look, we are not Roma and we will not do a show with Roma people, and let them wait. Let's wait, and for them to do the show of their own, and that would take 5 years maybe, or 10 years, or maybe it's never going to get done. So we say, okay, we can do it, but how we do it? We have to do it with them. So we have to ask them, okay, we cannot do the piece. And this is also what is interesting about the research that Anestis mentioned, is the fact that you also change during research, and your gaze changes. And the way you see them, the way you see yourself, it changes during research. So what we start, and then we say, okay, what else can we say about you? About what kind of stories do you have? What kind of stories you don't want to tell? What is constructed from my gaze that I have inherited from society, and what is more closer to your truth? And by this quid pro quo, you give me something, there is an exchange, we get closer to what they want to do on stage, but nonetheless they cannot do it themselves because they don't have the experience, they don't have the know-how, they don't know how theater works. Half of them, they've never been outside of a theater. So we have to be there to say, okay, this is from our experience what works and what not. And it's an exchange, let's say, which is very important. So to get rid of the gaze, like for example, if you go back in the 90s, you see films by non-Roma artists who present Roma people as people who have magic powers, who can fly, who can bend spoons, who live outside and they have no problem with it, and it's like a fairy tale. And when you meet people and you meet people and they say, I don't want to live outside. I want a home. I want to have a shower. I want to have a heating. I want to have a bed. I don't want to live outside just because you think I'm a romantic thing from the past.
I asked this question, we were talking about that during our research. Many times we had this question, like, what are we allowed to say and what are we not allowed? I mean, what is our approach as non-Roma creators? And I can remember we were speaking with a Roma lady, and she told us it's not important who are you, it is important what are you going to say about us. It was something like...
That's a very good answer.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
And also, there is also the argument by Spivak, you remember this text which says, who is going to talk... If you're allowed to talk only about yourself, who is going to talk about the people who are not allowed to talk? Who is going to, can the subaltern speak? I think this is the text I'm referring to.
yeah, a very good answer. answer.
Yeah.
The next question is, sometimes I'm also being challenged by people that, well, if, for example, like if you are using real people on the stage, then why not I go to see a documentary film? It is also the real people, and it's even more real than what you are doing on the stage. And so how you answer that question?
Why are you saying it's more real when you see it on television or in cinema than on theater?
Well, my case is a bit different because my case is more like verbatim. Most of the time I use actors to play the interviewees, not the real person on the stage. But even in this case, because people may, for example, people may say, well, if I am a documentary film, I don't need to train them to, as you say, to remember the lines. I can just film them, and then afterwards I will do all the editing.
Of course,
so they
yes,
do not
it's
have to
easier.
remember the lines. It's easier. So what's the point of making all this effort then?
Well, it's the essence of theater. It's the contact, the direct contact with the subject, with the people on stage, the creation of a community for 1 hour or 2 hours or 3 hours in the same room, where questions that absorb us in our normal life or daily life are being posed, being answered, being overruled, being it's a living conversation, which is what is happening. This you cannot have. You cannot have a conversation with your television. I'm not saying we love documentary films, and I would love to know how to make them myself. Yeah, it would be less stressful, I think. But to have this opportunity to have it on stage and live is a big statement. It's also a political statement as well.
Yes, it's also the point of something of live art, you know. I don't know how is the situation in Hong Kong, but in here in Greece, there is after the COVID pandemic, where people were, you know, where we were for something like 2 years in front of a display, in front of a monitor, in front of a television, and only watched movies and films and everything there, and then we go and we play a video game, or we take our laptop, or we take our smartphone. There is another necessity for the live performing arts, and there is a different movement in the body.
Yes, definitely. I totally agree.
Than when you create for the screen.
Yes.
I think this is right now the important moment for that.
Again, I totally agree with you. But again, sometimes I got another challenge by people that people will say that well, you are only preaching to the converted, like what you say in the theater. People are all middle class, and in this case is white people, and it's not Roma people will not be able to afford the tickets. And so you're only talking to, and then people who come to see a show about, for example, like Roma people, they are already interested in these issues. They are aware of these issues. So you don't change much. So
I would not.
How will you answer this?
I'm not very sure about
Yeah.
that. Maybe yes, maybe not.
Because our experience is that anti-Romanism, let's call it like this, it's one of the last, maybe the last accepted racism in
Europe.
Greece or in Europe as well. So I don't think any people will, I don't think that most of the people or all of the people who will come to see the show will be converted, that we will preach to the converted. I think people will come with a lot of suspicion if they come. They will come with a lot of curiosity. They will come with questions like, will they tackle the issues of criminality by Roma people? Will they speak about this? Will they speak about that? So it's not a feel-good evening where we're going to go there. The people are going to be nice in the audience and on the stage as well, and everyone is going to feel happy and good about themselves when it finishes. It's not the case, and it always depends on when in time and where and in which political situation you do a theater piece, and where also. Like, just because this theater is, it's so big and so, let's say, I don't know what else to say. It's big and nice. It doesn't mean that the people that come here or would like to see shows here they don't have stereotypes. Wrong stereotypes, constructed thoughts about Roma people. It doesn't mean it. It doesn't mean that good people go to the theater. Yeah, I would say that not only good people go to theater. But this is in quotes, if you understand how I mean it.
Yeah, I understand.
And there is one more thing.
There's so many people that go to the theater, especially in Athens, that I don't think they're all, nice.
Ναι, this is what I want to say. Πώς θα πούμε, είναι ακόμα λαϊκή τέχνη το θέατρο στην Ελλάδα.
It's popular.
Yeah, I mean, in many countries in the West, theater is something like modern art. It refers or it addresses a specialized audience. This is not necessarily the case in Greece. In Greece, it's still very popular, and you can see that in the theater, very different people are going to watch a theater performance. It's not like it is, a medium only for a very specialized elite. This is a big difference. This is also one of the reasons why we have chosen to work here and not in Mitteleuropa, in Central Europe.
Because there are still a lot of theater audiences.
Yes. You have to imagine that. I don't know how long you've been here. We are in Athens. I don't know how long you have been here in Athens, but if you walk around, the season has started. Now, if you check, we can check together on the laptop, there must be at least 500 shows running right now. And until the end of the season, 1,600 shows in a city of 3 million people, where outside of the city center, there are no theaters. So it's all mostly in the city center. So it means that we have 1,500 shows, 2,000 shows a year in a season, which means there's a lot of people who go. Not all of them are in big houses like this.
And not all of them are very good.
Are very good or well visited. It's not the case. But in order to have so many shows, it means that someone is making a profit, so they continue doing it. And going to theater is more of a tradition here in Greece than going to the cinema, for example.
Yes, that's what I recognize.
Yeah.
I see. Of course, I don't go to a lot of places here, but from the places I visit, it seems there are more theaters than cinemas. When I
They are.
Yeah.
No, for sure there are no 200 cinemas in Athens.
Okay. So, and about the rise of the documentary theater in these 20 years, do you think it's somehow related to the social situation or not? For people like you to start doing documentary theater, or Martha to start doing documentary. I think she even has this international network of documentary theater. Is it related to the social situation here, do you think, somehow, or not? Because I'm really not familiar with the social situation here.
I don't think it's connected to the social situation. I think it was for some reason there was a need of telling stories in a different way, or telling different stories, or telling stories more quickly and with a different liberty, which started in Central Europe, and then the rest of the world somehow got infected by it, and they said, "Yeah, this is the right time for this kind of theater." I think I think it was a thing of timing, but in regards not of a social situation, but in a situation of theater fatigue, of a theater where you say, "Yeah, how long are we going to play just Chekhov?" And how long are we going to play these pieces again and again, which are great. I love them. I would love them. I would love to do them, and so on and so on. But there are people who say, "Nah, I want to do something different." Am I allowed to do something different? And yeah, theater changes, and also the way you express and the way you tell stories change. I mean, there are so many people now who tell stories through TikTok. Now, I'm not saying it's an art form, but it's something that other people absorb and consume. And we cannot just say it doesn't exist. It exists, and it will manifest itself in the way we think, the way we see, the way we produce content.
Well, the last question. So, how you imagine, or how the development of documentary theater here? Do you think it will go on and it will be more popular, or well, it will stay around the same, or yeah, how do you imagine the development of documentary theater in Greece?
Yeah, we are last of the Mohicans. I don't know. There are not so many people.
No, look,
do
I
this.
think it is a genre which is more, it's not very easy to produce it in the free market, because free market works with under conditions. For example, a free producer would prefer to have a text that people recognize, actors that people recognize, so that they can have, they can approach wider audiences, bigger audiences. But if a performance is good, the performance will find the audience. So I would not say that the future goes this way or the other way. There are periods where there is necessity for this kind of plays, for this kind of production, and this comes again and again. Yeah.
We will coexist in peace. Yeah, that's a nice finale, I think, yes. There's room for everyone. Everyone is accepted.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. For
Thank you.
coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Thank you.